Hi everyone, hello. This is the third videos that I'm recording for this channel, and this one would be a bit different from the previous two in a way that I will be analyzing a game which I haven't played. So it's a game which was sent to me by one of the members of Chesspunk community on Twitter or X, and I was asked if I could just go through the games and share my analysis, and this is what we will be doing. This game was played in the rapid time control 10+5 on Lichess. We will be looking at this game from White's perspective because Locklar is the one who sent this game to me, and a few things, two things actually to mention here. First is you will see here some comments which are the ones which Locklar has provided to me. So those are essentially comments and annotations from the white side, which is a great thing to do. It's one of the actually best ways to improve your game, is to analyze your game and add some annotation and try to explain your ideas and why you played certain moves. Second thing is that there will be no engine evaluation or engine analysis over the course of this video, so I will be essentially sharing comments based on my understanding, based on what I'm able to see on the board. Engine obviously may or may not agree with it, and if you will find something that you feel like I missed, do let me know, please. I am willing to learn and grow myself, but I feel like really the best way is to look at the game without the engine. Obviously you can turn the engine if you want to when you are analyzing the games, but for this video I will be going through the games and replying to some comments which player with the white pieces have put there and add some of my own. So let's dive into it. So the game started with d4 e5, which is a very interesting gambit. Obviously white takes on e5, and after d6 we go knight f3, and there's a comment, I've been caught by bishop sacrifice on f2, so just okay. So it seems like look, you were afraid of potential sacrifice on f2. So I think probably you thought if you take here, I assume black will take with the bishop, and then there might be some ideas like bishop to c5. Okay, I would, though I don't see any reason not to take that pawn though, because one of the things which I would say when it comes to gambit play, I mean obviously there are, you know, sound gambits and there are objectively bad gambit. This one doesn't seem like a sound gambit at all, so I don't see any reason why you wouldn't want to take that pawn, regardless of what black takes with. You are essentially going to be up a pawn, and I don't know, the position is I mean you're yet to develop your pieces, but it's move 3 and you're the upper pawn, so I don't see why you wouldn't take it. But although I do understand that there might be some hesitations around, as you mentioned, the potential sacrifices on f2. So we continue on. Okay, black goes to knight to c6, e4, very good move. You still could take on d6, but I understand that you didn't want to. Bishop to g4, bishop to e2, bishop takes, knight takes, knight to c3. Okay, so there are two things. There's nothing wrong with the bishop e2 move, but it seems a bit passive, to be honest. I think you probably didn't want to allow the capture on f3 and knight takes e5, so I think you probably saw if after something like knight takes e3 this might happen, but also it's not really that bad. You could just drop your queen back and then play f4 and kicks that knight out. So bishop e2, it's not a bad move, but I would even look for something like You could even play here bishop to b5, for instance, to pin that knight, or even knight to c3. I think knight to c3 is also a good move to play. So bishop to e2, yeah, it seems a bit passive. So you take, and after this move, I wouldn't play this move knight to c3 here, because you are giving black an opportunity to take on f3, which I think they haven't done, which is interesting. Why? I would just drop the bishop back to e2, and here also it looks like black has centralized knight, but this knight will be easily kicked out with the move f4. So you can even play f4 castle and try to build some activity on the king side. So I feel like with the move like knight to c3, you are giving up the bishop pair, which is one of the imbalances in this position. So your opponent doesn't take your castle. Bishop to e2, knight to e2. I anticipated my opponent was about to castle. Okay, I do understand the intention, and the plan is not really a bad one, but here it sort of allows black to take on a f3, and this time actually damage your pawn structure. Right here, actually, black wouldn't even need to castle. They can play a move like rook to g8 and start pushing their pawns, where actually you will be the one being attacked and being in a position to defend it, right? So there is nothing wrong with regrouping the pieces, but I feel like it fails concretely, right? Because of this move knight to f3, and also we still don't know where black would castle, right? So I think here you could probably develop this bishop, or you could still play bishop to e2 to prevent black from taking on f3. So I think it's a bit premature to start this maneuver at this point, because there's nothing stopping black from going king side with the castle, right? But I still appreciate that it's good to have a plan, but here I think it gives black an opportunity to doubles the pawns on the king side. So surprisingly, black doesn't take on f3. Queen to d2. You probably want to go to g5, I guess. h6, queen to f4. Rook to b1, queen to g3. Planning on taking bishop to h6 because the pawn is okay. So you want to play this, and he played king to h7. Okay. All right. So I understand you're now moving pieces to white's king side. I'm not sure what this bishop to b8 move does actually for your opponent. It seems very unclear. It seems like just a move was made without the plan, or maybe there is a deeper plan that I don't see, but it doesn't seem like that move achieves anything at all. Queen to g6, king to h7, and you went rook to d1. So I think here so there are I think instead of rook to d1, you could have easily played, I think, either knight to f4 and knight to d4. I actually like knight to d4 even more, because you will get a chance to move to f5. Because you have played this move knight to e2 with the idea of regrouping the piece, but the knight is still there, and this moves like this, you know, rook to b8, which doesn't do anything, is a perfect opportunity to play active or developing moves, because our opponent hasn't done anything productive, and it gives us a chance to continue slowly building our position. So I think knight to d4. Am I missing anything? No. Knight to d4 would have been a very good move to play, with the idea of putting the knight to f5, where it will be a beautiful knight and you will actually continue what you have started, right, with this knight maneuver. All right. Rook to d1 is not a bad move either. You're putting the rook on the semi-open file. c6, b3, preparing bishop b2. The knight is in defender. Okay, so you want to play bishop to b2, potentially take it because this pawn is pinned. All right. And just to comment on what your opponent is doing, is c6. I'm really a bit confused with what this c6 move achieves. They could have probably played c5 if they want to play a move with a pawn, because that will take away the d4 square. c5 is unclear, and you want to play b2 to activate the bishop. All right, sounds like a plan. I do this anyway because the knight. Okay, I see. So I like the idea. So unlike your opponent, which plays these moves, rook to b8 and c6, which I think don't really achieve much. You play these two moves to develop your bishop to an active square. I actually like that idea. Knight to d7. Knight to d7 seems like a bit of an odd move to play. Do they want to play here, or why? Oh, bishop h4. Okay, so knight to. Okay, I thought they want to go to e5, but apparently black was preparing this bishop to h4. Bishop to h5, so you want to take on g6 and bishop to h4. This pawn is hanging, doesn't it? Attack and take. Oh yeah, great. So it's actually fantastic that you saw this pawn hanging. I also was confused because it seems like an attacking move, but yeah, the pawn is hanging. And knight to f6. Takes. I see the queen staring at each other. I don't want to take it because I'm worried I will surrender file to the opponent. Okay, but the at this point the pawn on e4 is hanging. g6. I guess the exchange I wanted. Takes my queen, take back with the open, gets my concern. I'll do some damage. Yeah, but here's the thing is that we gave up a pawn. We gave up a pawn which we won on d6. Let me go back a few moves. So here was playing bishop to h4. Black, sorry, weakened the d6 pawn which you took, and now you are up a pawn. After knight to f6, here I think taking on g6 is a good move because your bishop is attacked, so you're taking it, you're forcing this trade, and then you play g3, which allows your opponent to take on d6, take on e4 with tempo. I think I do understand that you didn't want to surrender the file, but what I think you could do, you could have taken on d8 even once, right? So you could take on d8 once and now play a move like g3. Yeah, so now you didn't technically give up the open file, but you wouldn't give up that pawn on e4 either, because if you take the pawn on e4, if they take, you take the piece. I mean, there's probably this move. Black can take on f2. Yeah, so I think with this, I understand the reasoning behind it. So you didn't want to give up the open file, but at the same time, in this particular position, what is important to notice is that the pawn on e4 is hanging, right? So if we give a chance for white for black to make a move, they will just capture the pawn on e4, which we don't want to happen, right? So we don't want to give up the pawn which we just won. I think taking on d8 once could have been a good possibility. You could have even taken twice here, so there is no threat on f2. in the end, right? Because previously we had rooks and the f2 was hanging. I don't think there's any risk of allowing this rook to d2. Again, at this point we are up a piece and our position should be winning. So yeah, if you didn't want to go for all of this, I think taking on d8 once at least was a good idea. Or you could even drop your queen back to any square, because if you drop it back, essentially you will be attacking the black queen with the rook. So here's again, it seems like your opponent managed to win the pawn back, right? And they did it with a tempo, because now you cannot even capture on h4 because the rook on d6 is attacked. So they have to move, and they move the bishop back. So here again, the position is not bad. I think it's pretty equal position, but we want to pawn up here, right? So we want to pawn up in this position. Yeah, it would have been good to calculate and see how we can avoid giving up the pawn. Yeah. Continue here, g5. So we could have played knight to h4, drops a knight back, so you put rook to e1, but there is... They played knight to c5, yeah, they played knight to c5. So here, I think there's similar sort of inaccuracy to what happened with the pawn on d6 and e4. So here, they're attacking your knight, and I think you could have gone here knight to h5, although it's not clear how you would get that knight out. But even something like knight to d3 would be a good move, right? You're defending the pawn on f2. They cannot capture, and it's an equal game that continues. But if you sort of try to counterattack the black knight, and I think you were hoping for something like this, yeah, maybe, yeah, which is actually, it should be a better position for white because white rooks are active. But again, black doesn't have to take, right? So they could play, and actually they did play a very good move, knight to c5 with a tempo. So it's sort of an intermediate move. And now your rook is under attack, your knight is under attack, you have no check, you have no even... You could have sacrificed here, by the way. But still, you will be down a piece, yeah. You could, I was thinking about something like this, at least to win a pawn, yeah, but you will be down a piece anyway, yeah. So it's I'm afraid it's a lost position basically, yeah. Yeah, here from now on, yeah, it's essentially, oh, yeah, it seems like it was essentially conversion for black side. So at this point there is not much you could do, right? No tricks, nothing, and you result at this point, which is understandable, right? Black has a winning position. So there are few things I just want to highlight here, things that have crossed my mind while I was going through this game. Our first thing, when you are making a move, try to evaluate all the captures your opponent has, right? So like this very first position, this knight to e2, I think you could have seen that knight takes f3 is a possibility. And also I suggest to follow up on your ideas, right? So if you came up with an idea which was here to move the king, knight to the king side, continue with it, because I think what happened here, you played knight to e2 and move 9, and I think for a very long time that knight just stayed on e2. Look, wow, so it's moved 23, so from the move 9 to move 23, so for 14 move that knight stayed on e2, and you made that move with the idea of moving that knight to a king side. So you had some opportunities here both d4 and f4 squares were available. So just if you have already started with the plan, try to continue with it, right? Because here again, the knight to e2 move, I think it was an inaccuracy for the reasons I have mentioned already. And I think the second part of inaccuracy was to keep that knight there, yeah, because the knight hasn't been doing anything there from the whole middle game. Second thing I would suggest is to do some puzzles on the intermediate moves, right, or in between moves, because what happened here, I think you apparently missed this idea of knight takes e4 with a tempo, and later you missed this idea of knight to c5. So when you are doing this counterattack, so let's say your piece is attacked and you want to attack your opponent's pieces in response, try to calculate the moves where they don't have to capture it, right? So I think you have probably captured what I've shown here, and you are happy with this position, which is a pretty good position, but it didn't happen because your opponent didn't have to take, right? So they have played this intermediate move, after which you essentially had a lost position here. All in all, I like the game. Even though you have lost, it seems like you have been putting effort into coming up with a plan. So you try to activate your pieces. I really like this maneuver, b3, bishop to b2. So you have tried to line up your pieces against the king. What was lacking is, again, this awareness of your opponent's threats and awareness of your opponent's intermediate moves. So that's what I have to say about this game. Thank you for sending it over to me. I really enjoyed looking at it. If you would have more games, or if you're just watching this video and you want to have your games analyzed or taken a look at, please send it over to me. I will be happy to share my comments. For now, that's pretty much it. It was an interesting game, as I said. Thanks for sending it to me. Thank you for watching this video. See you in the next ones. Bye bye.